Ho, ho, ho! No, it's not Santa, it's Rob B here with Rob D, and you are listening to the Property Podcast. We've delivered a lot of episodes this year, but we have gone and picked out our absolute favourites, the ones that, if you've missed, you absolutely need to listen to, but if you've only listened to once, you probably should go back and listen to again. There's some absolute crackers here, we can't wait to share them with you.
Yes, thank you for joining us. In case you don't know, we run a company that buys more than £100 million worth of property every year for our clients. You can find out about that at propertyhub.net/invest. And we also put out a podcast every single week. But you may not have listened every single week, or you may be new to the podcast. Lots of new people have joined us this year, which is awesome. Or maybe you're one of our favourites. Maybe you listen every week, but you want to go back and use the Christmas break to revisit some of the best, some of the most important episodes of the year. Well, we're going to make that really easy for you. Rob, we're going to be sharing objectively the most popular episode of the year, and links to all these episodes will be in the show notes to make life nice and easy for you. But Rob, let's indulge ourselves a little bit. Before we get to objectively the most popular episode of the year, let's talk about our favourites. We've recorded 50-odd episodes this year. Which one stands out in your memory as being your favourite? Or maybe the one where if someone said, I've taken the year off from the podcast, I haven't listened to anything at all, what's the one episode I should listen to? Which is the one you direct them towards?
I think it was really tough picking out this episode, Rob, because I feel like we've delivered some decent stuff this year, but luckily we have a few more mentions after my own, so I feel under less pressure because of that. But the one I've picked out is Has the 18-Year Property Cycle Failed Us? From episode 594. And I feel that this was a really important episode because we have really popularised the 18-year property cycle in the UK. We've talked about it for many, many years now. And I'm not saying we were the first ever to talk about it, but we really pushed it in a big way, really dug deep into the 18-year property cycle. And so often when I meet people from the Property Hub community, one of the common things people still ask me today is, what do you think's happening with the 18-year property cycle? Or how will the 18-year property cycle impact this or that? And it's amazing how connected our community seems to be with this concept. So to then do a podcast where I've pretty much said, no, I'm pretty much wiping my hands with this economic model was kind of a big deal. And you didn't go quite as far as that, which I think also makes the episode really interesting to get your perspective, maybe even kind of arguing on the side of the 18-year property cycle. But I thought that episode, to change an opinion that's been held for so long, I think was a bit of a brave thing to do. If I was going to give ourselves credit, it's easy just to stick with what you've said before, because that was something you were really passionate about and interested in before. So to change your position and then go public on that change, I feel that was a big episode for us. And I think episode 594, Has the 18-Year Property Cycle Failed Us? Is a must-listen to episode because of that.
I agree. I think that's a great pick. And regardless of where you end up landing on this question, do you still continue to use it as a guide or not? We know different people have been in touch, having different views on this. Whichever way you end up going, there's analysis in that episode that will allow you to, I think, make better use of the data that is out there, whether you end up sticking to this 18-year concept or not. So that would be a great episode to check out, or indeed to go and revisit, because there's loads in there.
Well, Rob, it's Christmas. I've brought a cheery episode, the 18-year property cycle failing. What cheery episode are you picking?
You've read ahead, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah, my favourite episode was 581, 7 property disasters we've had in the last 12 months. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, I feel so Christmassy right now.
But I think it's a really important episode. Maybe not one to replay on Christmas morning, but I enjoyed this episode for 2 reasons. Firstly, it gave us a chance to moan. That's always good fun. And you get to call it work as well. Got to stand here for an hour and complain with you and then come out and say, oh, I've been working hard this morning. That was good. But also, I think it's super important to recognise that stuff goes wrong. And we always say in the abstract, oh yeah, things go wrong when you invest in property. But I'm not sure how well that lands, how effective that is, because I still end up talking to a lot of people. I know our team hears from a lot of people who've started investing. They're still early in that process. And they seem surprised when something doesn't go perfectly. We try and say, no, this is normal. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It just happens. So by sharing real examples of some of the things that have gone wrong for us within just a year, some of which, if you were new to property, would sound terrifying. But then hearing about the fact, they happened, we weren't fazed by that. Here's what we did about them. Here's how we feel about it now. I think that's a really useful perspective for people who are new to property, and for people who are experienced in property can probably nod along and go, oh yeah, I had the police knock down my door this year as well. So I think there's something in there for everyone to relate to.
I really love that we do these episodes, and actually we get a lot of feedback from people to say thank you for the balance that we try to bring to property investment. Because you'd think on the property podcast, every episode would be 7 more reasons why property is incredible. It would be very easy just to do those episodes. We'd all feel good about it. We would, you would, listening. But it's not useful. Yes, we know property investment's incredible. That's why we've been doing the podcast for over 10 years. If you invest over the long term, you probably will do amazingly well. But it's not all rainbows and unicorns. There's lots that goes wrong on the way. And for some people, property investment might not be the right thing. I've certainly met investors who have been really stressed out, but what seems to be to me like a small thing, I just think, why are they doing this? Why are they putting themselves through that if that's how they're reacting to this situation? So if you are new to property investment, I think this is a great episode to help you understand whether it's something you should be pursuing or not, or continuing with or not. But if you're an experienced investor, I think you'll just enjoy it to realise that you're not alone and that, yes, things do go wrong. But I think most people will take comfort from this episode, Rob, because not only do we talk about what happened, but how we dealt with it. And I think that's what's really important. Of course, we've shared our favourite episodes from the year, but we also like to share an episode from producer Dan, because he's had to listen to us more than anybody else, because he edits our rambles each and every week and somehow turns it into something pretty decent. So thank you, Dan. So the least you deserve is you picking a podcast. And he has picked a brilliant podcast, Rob. It's episode 571, Update on the Silent Property Crash. Now, I said we popularised the 18-year property cycle. We didn't come up with the concept, but we certainly tried to drive it as a concept. I think we were probably the first. I don't know of anybody else who was talking about a silent property crash before us, so I'm pretty proud of this concept. The original episode was from last year, but this year we did an update on the silent property crash, and I feel it's an important concept that people really, really do need to understand. Because for me, it gives me a lot more confidence as a property investor, that understanding that a silent property crash has happened, but as we've touched on these episodes, it is the best type of crash you could ask for. If you're going to have a crash, you want a silent one.
Exactly. And if you haven't listened to that episode or heard us talk about this concept, then you might be thinking, property crash? What property crash? The property market's been up this year. Well, yes and no. And this is why you need to go and listen to this episode. We've done a YouTube video on this subject as well, which we can link to in the show notes. But this is so important because it's so easy to look at property prices today and go, well, prices are at an all-time high or close to it. There's all these things to be worried about. Surely this is not the time to be investing. And maybe for you, it's not the time to be investing. I'm not saying everyone should pile in. But the point is, without going a level deeper, you are missing a lot. And it could be giving you a skewed perception of where the market is, which is unnecessarily holding you back. So great pick, Dan. That's episode 571, Update on the Silent Property Crash.
But what was your pick, dear listener? What was the most popular episode of the year? Well, some honourable mentions, first of all, because these actually were the most popular, but it's because they were at the beginning of the year, so more people have downloaded them. So our predictions episode is always one of the most, if not the most downloaded episode of the year. We will be doing another predictions episode in a few weeks, but that is episode 565 if you want to hear what we actually said would happen this year. Hotspots episode, so us picking the best places to invest. Again, one of the most downloaded episodes of the year. That was episode 567. And the market updates, they're always very popular. But the one that we've picked out, Rob, as the most popular of the year, because the amount of downloads it got, considering when it came out, was episode 575. And that was called What on Earth is Happening with Property Prices? And it just shows you how quickly we all move on. I think we've all accepted now, as property investors, that it's been a good year for property. And actually, things aren't all that bad. But when we did this episode, a couple of months earlier, everyone else was predicting that property was going to have a shocking year. The predictions for 2024 on what was going to happen to property prices were dire. If you followed the predictions, you probably would just stay away from property. We were a little more optimistic than some of the other experts out there. But when the data started to show that actually the property market isn't in the doldrums and is starting to perform quite well, we didn't just accept it and go, haha, we're right. we did something more important. We dug into the data. And I can understand why this episode was so popular, because we didn't just gloat and go, look, we told you this would happen. We actually got into the numbers and understood why this was happening. And I really enjoyed that episode. So I'm so glad our community enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I think that the title and the timing were perfect because it reflected end of March, beginning of April, when this went out, what everyone was thinking. Because like you said, that's the point at which this consensus of that it was going to be a bad year for property was starting to evaporate, and all the signs are looking good. And we're going, hang on a minute, what's going on here? So I think this episode is well worth revisiting if you're going to go back and listen to a couple over the break, because most of the factors and the reasoning that we talked about still apply today, but also is a reminder of just how quickly sentiment can shift. So yes, Rob, I think that well deserves its status as the most popular episode of 2024.
And normally, at this point of the show, we do the Hub Extra where we bring you more, but it is a best of episode. So let's give you the best of episode, which was 611, where we gave you our best books, podcasts, and much more in that episode. It's always a really, really popular episode as well. So go and check out episode 611, where we give you the very best of what we've used, listened to, and watched this year. I always enjoy that episode, so go back and listen to episode 611. So that is us done. It's a few days away from Christmas, and you're probably thinking, guys, take a break. Skip a week on the podcast. But long-time listeners know that ain't happening. We'll be back, yes, on Boxing Day with another episode. It's going to be a short episode, but at that time of year, we like to do a bit of a reflection. I'm going to reflect on the year so far, and maybe even look ahead a little as well. So that's next week's episode. So if you are finding Christmas a little intense, you want a bit of reflection, well, join us for that episode. It'll go live on Boxing Day, but don't worry, we won't hold it against you if you don't listen to it on the day. Pick it up in between Christmas and New Year, and it'll be a nice episode to listen to. A bit of chill out time. And I hope everyone listening has a bit of chill out time wherever you do over the Christmas and holiday period. It's a lovely time of year. It's a time to refresh and recharge, but make sure you do, because 2025 is going to be a big year if you want it to be. And I'm really excited about what we're going to bring, and I'm hoping that you're going to come on that journey with us. So here's to an amazing holiday season. Rest up, everyone. Have a good one, and we'll be back with you on Boxing Day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.